For a very long time, I used to believe that the mind was something I had to accept, not something I could train. I believed that anxious people were simply born anxious, that people who gave up easily simply lacked willpower, that calm people were calm because of their personality. And I lived for many years with that belief until I realized one very uncomfortable truth. It was not that my mind was weak, it was that I had never trained it to become strong. The moment of realizing this did not come from books or grand philosophies. It came from the repetition of the same pattern. Every time difficulty appeared, I reacted the same way. Avoidance, delay, convincing myself that I needed more time, and then feeling disappointed in myself. When a pattern repeats enough times, you are forced to ask a hard question. Is this the situation, or is this how I am operating internally? The mind is not something you merely possess. It is something that controls you every single day if you do not learn how to take control of it. We spend a great deal of time training the body. We understand that muscles need resistance to grow stronger. But when it comes to the mind, we expect it to be naturally steady, naturally focused, naturally patient. And when it fails to do those things, we blame ourselves instead of asking how we have been training it. There was a man named Lucas who once said that he did not lack goals. What he lacked was the ability to stay with a goal when his emotions changed. Every time his excitement faded, his mind immediately looked for an exit. And because he had never trained the ability to observe this reaction, he believed that this was simply who he was. This is a very important point. Most of what you call personality is actually just untrained mental habit. You were not born lacking focus. You simply never trained the ability to hold attention. You were not born weak under pressure. You simply never learned how to stay with discomfort without running away. Training the mind begins with recognizing a very direct truth. You are not every thought that appears in your head. You are the one who is listening to them. And when you can listen without immediately believing, you begin to create space to choose. At first, that space is very small, only enough to keep you from reacting right away. But this small space is the foundation of mental strength, because every impulsive reaction happens when there is no space, and every mature choice requires it. There was a period when I began observing my mind the way one observes the weather. Some days were cloudy, some days stormy, some days lightly sunny. But I no longer confused the weather with who I was. I could be anxious without being an anxious person. I could be discouraged without being someone who gives up. This separation completely changed the way I faced difficulty. Training the mind does not remove negative thoughts. It stops them from dragging you away. And that is the difference between a life that is controlled and a life that is guided. In the next part, I will go deeper into the most common mistake that causes people to train their bodies diligently while allowing their minds to weaken day by day without realizing it. The most common mistake people make when trying to improve their lives is focusing entirely on external discipline while leaving the mind untrained. They wake up earlier. They create schedules. They push themselves harder, and for a short time it works. But eventually, everything collapses again. Not because the method was wrong, but because the foundation was never built. The mind is the environment in which every habit lives. If the environment is unstable, no habit can survive for long. There is a very subtle illusion at play. When you force behavior without training the mind, you feel productive. You feel strict. You feel like you are finally doing something right. But beneath that surface, your mind is quietly resisting. It is building pressure, and pressure always looks for a way out. This is why many people can maintain discipline for a few days, sometimes a few weeks, then suddenly quit in one dramatic moment. They say they are burned out. But burnout is not caused by effort. It is caused by internal resistance that was never addressed. There was a woman named Hannah who experienced this cycle repeatedly. She could follow a routine perfectly when she was motivated, but the moment motivation dropped, her mind turned hostile. Every task felt heavy, every obligation felt unfair, and eventually she would abandon everything and blame herself for being weak. What Hannah did not realize was that her mind had never been trained to cooperate. It had only been forced to obey. Training the mind means teaching it how to stay present when things become uncomfortable, how to remain steady when results are slow, how to continue when there is no emotional reward. Without this training, the mind will always look for escape the moment pressure rises. Another major mistake is believing that a strong mind means a mind without doubt. That is not strength, that is suppression. A trained mind is not silent, it is stable. Doubt appears, but it does not dominate. Fear appears, but it does not decide. Most people try to eliminate negative thoughts. But negative thoughts are not the enemy. Unquestioned thoughts are. There is a very important distinction. The first thought that appears is not under your control. The second thought is. And training the mind means learning to intervene between those two moments. There was a time when I believed that if I felt anxious, it meant I should stop. If I felt uncertain, it meant I was on the wrong path. But over time, I learned that anxiety is often a sign of growth, not danger. And uncertainty is often a sign that you are stepping into something new, not something wrong. When you misinterpret these signals, you retreat too early, and retreat, repeated enough times, becomes habit. Training the mind is learning to stay when the instinct is to leave. Not recklessly, but consciously. You stay long enough to see whether the discomfort is actually harmful or simply unfamiliar. In the next part, I will explain how to begin training the mind in daily life, not through abstract ideas, but through very small, repeatable practices that build strength quietly over time. Training the mind does not require you to retreat from life or spend hours sitting in silence. It happens in the middle of daily life, precisely at the moments when your instincts want you to react automatically. The first practice is learning to pause, not a long pause, just a brief one. When an emotion appears, irritation, fear, discouragement, the trained mind does not immediately follow it. It notices it. That noticing alone already weakens the impulse to react. You are no longer inside the emotion. You are standing slightly outside of it. There was a man named Oliver who described this very clearly. He said that before, whenever he felt pressure, he would immediately distract himself. Phone, food, conversation, anything to escape. When he learned to pause instead, just for a few seconds, he realized that most emotions peak and fall very quickly if you do not feed them. What he once believed to be unbearable was often just unfamiliar. The second practice is staying with discomfort a little longer than you want to. This is where real training happens. The mind grows stronger not when things are easy, but when you choose not to leave at the first sign of difficulty. You do not need to endure forever. You only need to stay slightly longer than your habit tells you to. Many people mistake this for forcing. But there is a difference between forcing and staying. Forcing is violent. Staying is curious. You stay to see what happens if you do not run. And what usually happens is that the discomfort loses its authority. There was a woman named Clara who trained this during work. Whenever a task felt boring, she noticed the urge to switch to something else. Instead of obeying it, she stayed for just 5 more minutes. That was all. Over time, her ability to focus increased, not because work became exciting, but because her mind stopped panicking at boredom. The third practice is choosing response over reaction. Reaction is fast and automatic. Response is slower and deliberate. You cannot always control what you feel, but you can train how you respond. This is where the small space you created earlier becomes useful. For example, when you feel criticized, the untrained mind defends immediately, explains, attacks, withdraws. The trained mind asks one simple question: is this useful? That question alone changes the entire direction of behavior. The fourth practice is returning without self-punishment. You will fail. You will lose focus. You will react badly. This is not a sign that training is not working. It is part of the training itself. The key is how you return. If every return is filled with self-blame, the mind learns that trying is dangerous. If return is calm, the mind learns that effort is safe. There is a very important sentence worth remembering. You do not train the mind by being perfect. You train it by returning. Each time you notice that you drifted and gently come back, you strengthen the ability that matters most, the ability to choose again. In the next and final part, I will help you see how all of this comes together into a quiet form of strength. Not a dramatic confidence, but a deep steadiness that remains even when life becomes uncertain. There is a quiet kind of strength that comes from training the mind. It does not announce itself. It does not make you fearless. It does not remove difficulty, but it changes one very important thing. You are no longer controlled by what appears inside you. A trained mind is not a mind that feels nothing. It is a mind that can feel everything without collapsing. Stress appears, but you do not panic. Doubt appears, but you do not retreat immediately. Fatigue appears, but you do not abandon yourself. This is not dramatic strength, it is stability. And stability is what allows you to move far. One of the most powerful signs of a trained mind is the ability to remain present when things are unclear. Most people rush to conclusions because uncertainty is uncomfortable. They want answers quickly, even if those answers are wrong. A trained mind can stay with not knowing, and because it stays, it eventually sees more clearly. There was a man named Henry who said that before training his mind, he needed certainty to act. He needed reassurance. He needed guarantees. And because life rarely provides those, he stayed stuck. Over time, he learned something different. He did not need certainty. He needed trust in his ability to respond. Once he had that, uncertainty stopped being a threat. Training the mind also changes your relationship with failure. Failure no longer feels like proof that you are incapable. It becomes information, something to observe, something to adjust to. When failure loses its emotional weight, you stop avoiding it. And when you stop avoiding failure, you learn faster. There is a very important realization that comes late for many people. You cannot build a strong life on a weak mental foundation. No matter how good your plans are, no matter how talented you are, the mind carries everything. If it collapses easily, everything collapses with it. But the opposite is also true. When the mind is trained, many things become possible that once felt unreachable. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you become steadier within it. Training the mind is not a one-time achievement. It is a daily practice. Some days you will do it well. Some days you will forget completely. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are human. The only real failure is not returning. There is one final sentence worth holding on to. You are not training the mind to control life. You are training it to stay with life, as it is, without being broken by it. And when you can do that quietly, consistently, you develop a form of strength that does not depend on circumstance. A strength that remains when motivation fades, when clarity disappears, when the path is uncertain. A strength that allows you to continue, not because it is easy, but because you are no longer afraid of what happens inside you. That is what it truly means to train the mind.